it's kind of a special day. I paid off my GR86 yesterday. Pretty happy about that. It was like about $18,000 balance remaining on it, and the reason I did that was kind of spontaneous, and it's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So about 2 weeks ago, I went to a BMW dealership and I almost pulled the trigger on a 2025 M2. And I was so gung-ho about it. I was going to put $20,000 down, and I was still going to end up with a $1,300 a month payment for 5 years or so. And I was all in for a few days, and then I was about to send that final email to the salesman saying, hey, here's my spec, let's go order it. And then the anxiety started to hit of that much of a payment to make for 5 years, even with putting $20,000 down. So after sleeping on it, I was like, you know what, let me just take that money, pay off my GR86, and not have any car payment, and see how that feels for a bit. And I feel mentally amazing, although my savings account is significantly lighter. But what I want to talk about was, is it feasible to be a middle-class car enthusiast when everything new on the market, or even used in the market, is so expensive that you're going to be taking $1,000+ a month out of your pay for 5 years to get what's essentially the entry-level M car, you know? And that's not even talking about a Porsche, where, you know, I'm an engineer in my early 30s, and the idea of owning a new Porsche is gone. And I'm wondering, you know, I make decent money. Is it going to be possible for anybody to be a car enthusiast, for at least for new vehicles? But I mean, like, I spent today on Bring a Trailer. You know, obviously Bring a Trailer brings in higher prices, but like, what can I afford? You know, like, what can I comfortably afford as a performance car? It's like maybe a C5 Corvette or something like that, which is like not a terrible car, but you know, who's getting excited about a 25-year-old Corvette now? But anyway, my plan for the M2 was I was going to sell this, my 2014 Focus ST, and I drove that car, that M2, and I loved it. And I was like, man, this car has more power than my other vehicles combined. I got GR86, I got this, I got a KTM RC390, and yeah, and then I realized, like, okay, well, what do I actually like as a car enthusiast? I like to drive, you know, and if I'm gonna buy a car like that, you know, especially with insurance $3,000 for 6 months is like one of the rates that I was getting, and I have a clean record. Will I even be able to afford to drive it? Like, I would have to get collector car insurance and basically not drive the car, you know, and at the end of the day, what's the point of owning an $80,000 car that you can't drive whenever you want? So what I actually like to do is drive. And so I went out in this car afterwards, and I just drove, and I was like, you know what, this scratches an itch, the GR86 scratches an itch, and yes, I can get a faster car, but to have a decent car that I don't have to make any more payments off is, you know, a pretty liberating feeling in and of itself. And maybe that's worth it. And I mean, everybody talks about the economy always changing and stuff, but like, right now, like, is it going to be feasible to commit yourself to 4-figure payments over 5 years when, you know, the cost of living just keeps going up and up, and then there's talk of tariffs and stuff to make everything more expensive? I mean, the M2 is made in Mexico, right? What if we get a 10% tariff on that? Now a $80,000 car is going to be $88,000. Tax on top of that, another 10%. And you're at almost $9,000 just on taxes on top of that. You're at like $96,000, $97,000 for an M2. So I do kind of worry if it's possible to continue to be a middle-class car enthusiast, you know, because you know, it's a frustrating world when, you know, you consume all this car content, you listen to these car podcasts, you watch these car YouTube videos, and you got all these people complaining about, you know, not getting any views anymore or anything. But it's disillusioning, you know? Like, what can I do that relates to even the everyday driver that drives a $100,000 Lotus and owns Hooked on Driving, you know? There is no everyday driver that's putting out content that anyone cares about. You know, I can't relate to the guy that has, you know, a Lamborghini Countach and, you know, a Porsche Carrera GT, 4GT, Ferraris, multiple Porsches. I can't relate to any of that stuff, you know? I mean, I've got a pretty good fleet of cars, and I think the collective value of them is under $50,000. And I consider myself pretty lucky just to own a home now with a garage, especially with the housing market now. And you know, it's so far out of reach to get to that next level of, you know, you're out of the low power car zone, you know? Because I mean, how many cars that are enthusiast level with a manual transmission are there that are, I would say, attainable sub 40,000? It's like the GR86 and the Miata, which, you know, everyone's been talking about to death. But then you go a step beyond that, and, you know, there's a Supra, which is in the 50s and 60s if you get a good dealer to work with. And then, you know, you're looking at the M2, the Blackwing. Oh my God, the Blackwing was like, that thing looked like a car from 2014 inside, and they wanted more money for that than the M2. And then you have to deal with a Cadillac dealer. I guess this is kind of a rant for now. But where do you see the future of the middle class enthusiast going? Do we have to keep going so far down market to pay $80,000 for a 2007 Porsche Boxster or whatever? Like when will it end? When will the bottom drop out of this? Because I'm sure it's not sustainable that people would spend 80% of their income on a used Porsche or something. I would have to look back on trends to see like how the market has fluctuated over the years and whatnot, but for now it seems like peak price in those sorts of vehicles, and yet those cars still seem to be selling. So but for now, as a car enthusiast, gotta remember that the best part of owning a car is driving it. And this car may be only worth 10 grand or so, but it is a lot of fun to drive. And then you get this mixed with, you know, the difference in having an S10 ZR2 that, you know, is a $3,000 truck I could go four-wheeling in, or I got the GR86 I could take to the track. And none of them will light my hair on fire. They're not fast. I've still not really driven a fast car. I briefly drove a 996 base 911, and that was kind of cool, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to even drive or experience those hot, like, sports cars and stuff in the moment if they keep outpacing my salary. An entire year's salary for a base 911 now is absolutely insane to me. Say at least I'm fortunate enough to live in a place where we got some decent back roads, side roads over here.